Thank you, moderator, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very much pleased to present Vanuatu's early recovery lessons, especially with what we've faced with Tropical Cyclone Harold and COVID-19 pandemic as well. Next slide, please. Now, just in terms of context, Vanuatu is a small developing country with a high disaster risk profile. We're very much exposed to a range of hydrometeorological and geophysical hazards. And we were hit by Tropical Cyclone Harold in early April last year. And with COVID-19 in the backdrop, especially with the declaration of a global pandemic in March, that added a new dimension for Vanuatu, especially given we faced regularly cyclones. That COVID-19 added another dimension. Total effects that were measured, especially for those two particular disaster events, amounted to $617 million in losses and damages. The tourism and service sectors were particularly hard hit. And it's important to note that, especially for COVID-19 losses, that only were accounted for during the period of March and June, when we know it's an ongoing crisis, the extent of which is still unfolding, especially for us. And early last year as well, we were in the midst of an election and transition of power. You had a state of emergency, which was also in place at that time. Next slide, please. Especially with assessing impacts, we initially grappled with whether to do separate assessments for Cyclone Harold and COVID-19, or have separate plans. And then with COVID-19 as well, that meant, especially for a small island developing state with limited capacity, not having your usual international search capacity that you normally accorded to, particularly to carry out post-disaster needs assessment and recovery planning compared to past disaster events. For example, in 2015, we had Tropical Cyclone Pam, which hit the country, and we had search capacity from international agencies to help us. And this time around, it's more the reliance on local and in-country capacities. We had mixed absorptive capacity, especially to effectively carry out assessments. For some sectors or clusters, they're in better shape than others. Some not in that good of a shape, so that impacted on delay of assessments. The other thing that the lesson was that with sectors having either minimal baselines or nothing at all, non-existent baselines, and as well as ineffective information management systems. So that also meant that delays in assessments or how we can deliver timely assessments or interventions. Having said that, we did have excellent remote support from international agencies, something that was a first for us, having to do remote support, and the UN, World Bank, bilateral donors particularly helped in that aspect. Next slide, please. Now, in July, we had a recovery strategy that combined Tropical Cyclone Harold and COVID-19. The recovery strategy makes explicit linkages with our National Sustainable Development Plan, which is our long-term development framework. The three main objectives with this particular strategy are firstly to restore and strengthen essential social services and protections, enhance lives and livelihoods, and repair the natural and built environment. So currently, sectors and donors are aligning their plans and budgets to that particular recovery strategy and its objectives. We also see that you have an emergence of recovery mechanisms or coordinating mechanisms at the subnational level, which previously that wasn't the case. It's more having to rely on the national level capacities. Having said that, at the Prime Minister level, at the central coordination level, recovery functions is something that is new. So we've only had a structure that was approved and established early last year, and there still needs to be substantive capacities and institutional strengthening to be undertaken. As well, we do have a current Disaster Risk Management Act as far as legal frameworks is concerned, but that doesn't explicitly cover recovery, so to speak. Next slide, please. And when it came to financing, the government reprioritized budgets, especially after TC Herald hit. So you had sectors that were able to deliver early interventions. Through the Ministry of Finance, an economic stimulus package was announced to support local businesses and small medium enterprises. The reaction currently has been mixed. You have businesses that have been very much appreciative of the support, especially tourism, given its wide major contribution to the economy, but there's still remaining frustrations. If we go to the next slide, please. And this was something that is linked to this lack of baselines that I've mentioned earlier, and not having proper registration licensing mechanisms. So you have the small and informal businesses missing out, and that means as well as your low income sectors of the community that are involved in businesses. Currently, our aid coordination unit at the Prime Minister's office is working with donor partners to come up with direct financing agreements. And a Council of Ministers has, in September, established a recovery trust fund as a common decision, but this is yet to be operationalized. Next slide, please. Now, as far as next steps and ways forward, we're now having to work with recovery project proposals for funding, strengthening your coordination mechanisms, streamlining your financial processes. And we see that the TC Herald, Cyclone Herald recovery projects will be an opportunity for economic stimulus, especially economic recovery from COVID. Thank you.